Welcome to podcast episode number 6. Today we have the pleasure of having Sam Martin, aka MC Maz, come to talk to us. I have known Sam, I was thinking about this earlier, since about 2005 now, mate. It's a few years.
Sounds right.
So we met through a friend, I suppose, mutual friends, and Sam is also an electrician by trade and comes from a place very close to my second sort of hometown. So I'll let Sam give himself an intro and a bit about himself, and then we'll get into a bit more of the detail.
Thank you very much, Paul. What a pleasure it is to be here with you today, matey. I've never really had the opportunity to tell my story in full, so what a great privilege it is, mate. So my name is Samuel David Martin. I have 3 first names as a collective name, which is something I've discovered in recent years. I was born in 1984. I'm 40 years of age. During my 20s, I was an MC called MC Mass. Well, I'm into my 30s as well, and still in my heart right now.
Dabbling.
I'm a father first. I have a beautiful 11-year-old son called Leo Martin, who's my love and light and everything. I have my partner Cleo, who we've been together for about 2.5 years. And Cleo has a daughter who's 22. Cleo and I are the same age, around that 40. Cleo started a little earlier than me. So the 4 of us and our dog Coco, that's the setup. We live here in Auckland. I was born in Parapara Umu, down by the mighty Wellington. Moved around a lot growing up. Sort of nestled in for the high school years in Kati, where I became, who I am, I like to think. And I've been living in Auckland City for the last 20 years or so, since I was about 19 years of age here. And since being in Auckland, I am actually an electrician. So did the 2 things, had my MC career in the nighttime, wiring up people's houses during the day. So when I was about 25, started First Point Electrical, and 15 years have gone by, and I'm still very proudly the, what do we call me, founder, CEO, top dog, guy that's making it up as he goes. I'm that guy, First Point Electrical. So that's probably me in a complete nutshell. I think I've got everything.
Thank you very much. It's interesting, isn't it, there's not a lot of people in New Zealand that sort of born and bred in Auckland. Like I've probably met 2, like my wife was one. But outside of that, most people come from like sort of dotted places to get to a city like Auckland, because I'm from rural New Zealand, Pikawiti, and like everyone hated Auckland because it was Auckland, and then you end up there and you're like, can't really leave. It's actually really good. It's got everything going on.
Bad.
No,
There's little niches of whatever you're into, and I find the further south you go, they just start hating on the entire North Island.
No. At Nelson's, it's over. It's over.
But I know what you mean, man. I was raised to hate Auckland.
Yeah.
I don't know why we do that as a country. Like, what are we up to? You get up here, and Auckland's not hating on the rest of you, by the way.
No, I totally agree. That's right. I actually really enjoy, and that's the thing, especially being in Australia with the Australians and the people from the large cities. I love New Zealand, but New Zealand to them is Queenstown. Like,
right.
What about the rest of the country? We've never been anywhere else. But you go to Auckland and everybody's always traveling, like it's not, they for holidays will leave the city and go, and they're like the beautiful parts. And they'll actually explore it, where the other way, people that aren't from Auckland really don't go to Auckland. They've just got this sort of thing they've thought about and think, oh, I don't like them because they do this to us. It's like, I don't think that's how it works. But anyway, we're digressing.
Yes,
good. This is going to be good. No, Sam and the life. Yeah. So I'm obviously the same. We'll start with the electrician thing, because obviously that starts in your younger days. I was always brought up by my family. Father's a butcher by trade. Mum was doing insurance mainly, and they did all sorts of other jobs. They keep the family afloat across the years.
Hearty.
Exactly right. That the grind really. So I was always told to get a trade because it set me up for life. So I suppose, what's your sort of story? How did you manage to fall into it?
Look, I had a brother that really influenced me. He was a drummer. He was my first inspiration for all of the music stuff. I ended up sort of standing there in the sheds when he was, making a hell of a racket where we couldn't even eat our dinner with mum and dad and whatnot. And so high school, I was interested in the music stuff. I had my dad. You got to get a trade. I don't care what it is. You got to get one. So, literally, the story of how I became a sparky. I pretty much just picked the coolest sounding trade, the cleanest sounding one. Dived into that, and yeah, and started my journey at the Bay of Plenty Polytech over in Tauranga. So that's another connection that you and I have, isn't it?
Yeah.
The PGA connection. And yeah, so there was always that burning desire for business. Business has always been my, real interest. I saw my dad was an entrepreneur growing up with fashion stores and things like that. And so, yeah, I've managed to sort of work it my way from there, really getting into the trade sort of by force, but then, realize, hey, this is pretty cool. And I can create a business and, a career out of this.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, the Bay of Plenty, yeah, the Bay of Plenty Polytech was where it all started for me. But I did a pre-course, like industrial trades. We did it for to get into it. But my brother was a sparky, and I looked at the other one and was like, if I like cars, as you also have a bit of a passion for that. We have a bit of alignment. The
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't want to do automotive. I'll just end up on this grind and greasy. And I worked at petrol stations. It was like, I don't want to do that. I'll have a hate for it. And I was like, yeah, clean. What's sort of
Mm.
easy? What's sort of getting the most money?
Yeah. Yeah. That was the other
I'll
thing
just
too.
yeah, just be a sparky. But yeah, it's a good trade, and it takes you on different journeys. Obviously, myself and yourself, and it
Mm.
gives you different opportunities. There's so many niches in it as well. Like I've done residential as a start, did the commercial, got into industrial, then did metering, and then data centers. And yeah, so there's so many facets to it as well. It's not just like you get shoehorned,
Mm.
you're a sparky. Like there's also high voltage, and the list goes on
Yeah.
now. So like I suppose for people out there is a broader industry, as well. Um, so the Bay of Plenty Polytech days, yeah, I also think Polytech is an amazing, journey. If you manage, because I did a year. Did you do the year bit?
I think we did
Oh,
the same thing by the sound of it.
yeah,
I did the
it's great, mate.
pre-trade course where you do
Yeah,
your level two, level two, level three bookwork, and then you
yeah,
do a bit of work experience on
right.
your Friday, and then you're in there the next year. You're sort of you're into your apprenticeship, physically working for someone, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish I'd finished my papers.
You became registered, didn't you?
No, I did. Yeah, no, I just left around a lot. So I still had a few papers lingering, and my two. I think I had one, two, and a few
Yeah,
threes, and then I was too busy living life at that stage.
yeah,
Um, and that was great. And that's the thing. I don't know if they still do it, but I think that year of my life doing that course was, absolutely amazing. Met so many people, be they on a good path or a bad path. You sort of learn elements of life doing, a
mm,
course. A lot of people talk about going to uni, like they do that
yeah,
experience. Yeah, it's not dissimilar, but at the end of it, you end up, with some actual skills because I was doing some boat building stuff, electrical wise, and then got into my apprenticeship. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a fascinating time that was, especially in the for me it was the late '90s.
yeah.
Sort of everything was blowing up, and then yeah. So how do you talk about that cross with the business elements? I suppose like if you look at like how did you get into that the next stage of music? So like a lot of people, and I suppose we should focus a little bit on that. So you've actually, you've got some music videos, you've got an album, you actually had like a very good run from my point of view. Obviously watching it and being there during that period, it was amazing from the outside, but those struggles to get to those things and how does that functionally work? Because there's a lot of people out there, like may never have to see any of that because the world's changed, so dramatically, but there's still pieces of it that are probably very difficult that you may be able to, give
Yeah.
some insights into.
Yeah, well, how about I tell you how it all sort of began for me, eh?
Sounds
If that,
great. Go
that
for
works.
it.
Am I allowed to swear on this too? I better, if just in case it pops up, or
Yeah, I do because it just randomly does. But It's whatever, make it flow. It's good.
What
It's
make
good.
it flow? Cool. All right, man. Hey, look. So I wanted to come onto this podcast and just be as honest as possible. I wanted to tell my story, and so I was always into music during high school. I followed. My brother was the drummer, as I mentioned before. I picked the guitar because it was kind of. I thought maybe we could become like the Beatles or a sibling band or something like that. So I already had a lot of music kind of stuff behind me. I could play the bass, play the drums, play the guitar. Dabbled in a little bit of singing, to be fair. And then I didn't admit this for many years, but then a dude called Eminem come along, all right, and dropped a movie called 8 Mile. I remember I was 19 years of age, and I saw that with my good friend Jordan White at the Tauranga Cinema, and I just thought, man, this is wicked. I had my music ability. I started writing rhymes myself, and what did I do then? Then I moved up to Auckland from there with a dream to say, hey man, yeah, I want to be an MC. So probably had about 6 months or a year behind me, and I entered this thing called the Rhythm Nation competition. So this was back when Helen Clark was behind the reins of the country, and there seemed to be a shitload more funding available for the arts around that time. So there was a thing through my FM. I entered it. I ended up winning that round of the competition for a track called Bleeds. So all of a sudden we're in a professional studio with a guy called Chris Macro, who was from a group called the Dubious Brothers. I was in with the big players at the stage. And then with that easy funding, I thought, shit, I could do this again. So I had this other track called Music Man. So I did the same thing again. I was like, oh, I reckon I could win this competition again. So I submitted it to the Coke Rhythm Nation, ended up coming out on top again. And by this stage, they'd actually added a $7,000 video clip, fully funded, fully complete by guys like Chris Graham that were just kind of, Chris Graham's he's done all of the superstar kind of stuff now, but back then he was just beginning. And so, yeah, came out on top again. And then, so Music Man was well, it was the big one for me. It was the one that was catchy. It had me singing on the chorus. It got played on Juice TV that year, I think 400 times. It was on C4 Select, which was like if you were on C4 Select, you were cool. You could. I had all my friends and family texting in, to get it played. We got it played every single day that it was on. We used to have the thing running along the bottom. You could text in for your people. We would just hammer it. We would have spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on text messages. Juice TV was nominated for Breakthrough Video of the Year. Yeah, so that was the beginning of it.
That's great. That's just going on walking down memory lane in my brain here. I'm just like, geez, you sort of forget all those elements. Like you think like MTV when you're young, and then it evolved in New Zealand into those different elements, and then trying to promote things in a different fashion than you can now, where you sort of upload something which maybe a snippet, and then it just goes viral all of a sudden. Like you're like fucking famous, but not dissimilar exactly to this is how it used to happen though. Like you actually did some graft, you went in a competition.
Yeah.
Then you got that. It's to go from, I suppose, putting it in context of how you thought about it, as in like your things like I could do this as a career. I've just seen this like this movie, and obviously Eminem for myself as well in that sort of late 90s was a turning point, I suppose, not just for me, but I think for everybody that was not really into rap, but sort of like rap. It drastically changed your whole life. I think, and I've been watching a few things now about him coming back, I suppose, and he's 50, and a lot of people are reverting back to listen to his old music, and they're just like, what's this dude up to, man? His music's out the gate. You listen to it and go, literally just sang along to this. It's just he's nuts, but he's a genius at the same time. Like, and his career has just continually progressed. It's it's great to see that people like that can encourage and show people the light, and hence I suppose why I like talking to people to get their sort of insights into how to go about that. So you ended up cutting a full album though, didn't you, in the end?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so this is still on the hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a full album that I worked with, first with a guy called Evil J, who was like a local producing guy, whiz kid that was awesome. I then moved on to Luke Berryman, who was based here in Auckland, that I met at the SAE Institute, where I did my studies for audio engineering. He was one of the tutor guys there. We hit it off. We would always talk and discuss and get into these deep conversations about everything, and we ended up working together. He had a great job. He produces. He's one of the best engineers in the country, in my opinion. He does a lot of the work for Les Mills around the world, all of the sound alikes and making that sort of music. So we ended up jumping in the studio together. We actually found out about 2 years into it that we were second cousins. Funnily enough, it's
Whoa.
yeah, it
That
was an out
is.
of it story. We ended up getting talk about, where's your dad from? Wanganui. Dad, sent dad a text. Hey, do you know David Berryman? Dad took a month to get back to me, and finally got back to me, my 7-year-old dad, and said, "Hey, Sam, that's David Berryman. That's my cousin. So that guy that you're working with there, that's your second cousin." So this guy that we're working in the studio with, Luke, uh, the it's so close that our grandparents were brother and sister. That's how close the relationship was. So um,
Mad, eh?
yeah. So and then we also, during that, so we mixed and mastered a full album, and then we stumbled across a guy that did like the Brent Zalahi, who mastered the album. He is from Canada. He'd done some awesome stuff through a friend of a friend, and different. We got lined up with this guy. He was nominated for a Grammy Award.
Jeez.
He mastered Nickelback's album. That's the level
Yeah,
of the people
it's
he was dealing with. Yeah, so that was about the peak of where the hip hop stuff got for me.
so on those elements, you are an electrician at this time, doing these are two driving forces, sort of, one supplementing your, I suppose, career in music. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Look, I didn't actually last that long as an employee in electrical on the scale of things, to be fair. Like if we think about it, I started when I was like 17 with my
Yeah.
training with that course. I was only 25 when I operated my business. So what's that? Roughly 7-8 years that I was training and on the tools and working for someone. I've now done 15 years this
Yeah.
year with First Point Electrical. So it's literally half the amount of time.
It's pretty good, isn't it, when you think about that turn? Like I was at the same point when I left A-line to go and do, facilities management, data center stuff. My
Mm,
wife, to this day, she says, "Told you should have started your own company." So yeah, I was literally on the cusp of that at that time, but I took a different path. And I think that's a real interesting point, is that a lot of tradies will take that sort of step somewhere. That they might go back to work for someone, but they
mm.
more often than not will continue on that journey. And coming from the Tauranga region, like I worked for, like, I wouldn't say one man, but a very small company. And that was sort of how they did it there, didn't they? Everyone was sort of entrepreneurial. They'll throw their hat in the ring. They'll get their mates to help them
Yeah,
out. Like it's something that I suppose gets a little bit more ingrained to you than, I'd say, being in Auckland, where you have the luxury of, like, working in a company with 100 people, shall we say? Like you don't get to touch sort of a bit of
yeah,
everything. Yeah. So
yeah. I think it's like a bit of the Kiwi dream as well, to
it is, mate, yeah.
rugby on Saturdays and crack into my own trade. And I think with Sparkies, you don't need $100,000
No.
workshop to create your business. You just need some hand tools, a drill,
Mm.
a van, and you're good to go, mate. So
So that first step into the electrical world was like, you one day you like woke up and went, "Fuck this, mate! I'm gonna buy a van and I'm done." Was that it,
can
or
I
was
tell
there
you
like a
this? Yeah, oh, this is a
yeah?
perfect segue into what happened and why. And I'm gonna, again, I've never really told, to try and maintain my professional reputation and everything. I've probably concealed a bit of these stories, but I'm going to be completely as honest as I can today, as I mentioned. So I'm about 25 5 years of age, I'm right into my music. There was a thing called Fresh Fest, which was an Australian Gold Coast festival that was trying to kick off. And to kick this off, they asked for. They held a competition with it was something like 300 or 350 entries, mostly from Australia. We were the only one from New Zealand that entered. And if you won, you were going to go and, be the opening acts for this festival. You had Grinspoon,
Oh, nice.
Fora, Bliss and Esso were going to be a part of this. So myself, I entered in, went through the stages, somehow ended up being in the top four, and they said, "Okay, everybody else is from Aussie. If you can get yourself over here, you're on, brother." So holy shit, so
Oh,
excited
on stage.
to get the opportunity. Yeah, so
Holy shit.
we won the opportunity. I sent in like my music on
Yeah.
CD probably back in those days. And so I was selected. The other three were Australian, and there was the one from New Zealand was myself. So, and I had a live band at that stage as well. So we had to get our asses over to there. In the meantime, just before we were about to take off to Australia, probably a week or so prior, an old friend named Caleb came in. Joined me for a night out. It was a massive night, a huge night. Had work the next day. It was a Thursday night. Came in. I probably rocked in at 4 o'clock.
The norm, mate. The norm on a Thursday.
Just I should have called in sick, but I didn't. I went into my employer as an employee, and I got through half of the day, and I just needed to lie down for a bit. I was just like, I just need to lie down. So the back of the van made for a good place to have a bit of a stretch the legs out a little bit, so to speak. I ended up nodding off for far too long. The builders that I was working for were looking for me. They thought I'd electrocuted myself and was under their house or something. They couldn't find me. Ringing the boss, ringing the supervisor, ringing. My cover was up. Disciplinary meeting was short after that. There was no way I could speak my way out of it because as I had fallen asleep, what gave me away when I finally emerged from that van, the builders just looked at me and I could see I had like cable drum marks etched into my face from sleeping on there.
Hello.
So that was fine. I thought this doesn't look good. This is not going in my favor. We're about to take off to Australia with the band. We're literally driving to the airport, and my boss goes, "Mate, can you just call in on the way to the airport?" And he says, "Mate, we can't, we need to part ways. You can't be sleeping in the vans and whatnot." And I was ready to do my own thing.
Yeah.
I was excited. My music was taking over. So long story short, we went to Australia. I had this little thing in the back of my mind, like, oh God, I'm gonna have to do my own thing.
Mm.
We went to Australia. We won the entire competition. So out of those 4 bands that represented and got that opportunity, we took it out completely on their own soil. And when I came home, I never worked for another person, and that was the birth of First Point Electrical, flying back from Australia that as winners that time.
Nice, mate. Nice. As you say, I suppose you don't tell a lot of your story probably to anyone, as you've noted. But yeah, I know pieces of the story, but not the whole story. You've done exceptionally well. It's unbelievable, isn't it? You're managing basically 2 lives, I suppose, in one, because you're doing 2 totally different things. Something I want to touch on before was you did your audio engineering.
Yep.
Was that on like weekends or after hours, or like you're doing?
Yeah. Great question, man. No, so I was about 21 when I did that at the SAE Institute, which is a renowned institute for audio engineering here in Parnell in Auckland. I believe they're still in operation to this very day. Yeah, I had to do a 9-month course over it would be 9 months full time. I did it in 18 months part time, so that was after part time after work. So and obviously longer because you need the time to do it. So
Plus also doing music and just that's
it just
a good grind. Yeah.
It just resulted in more studio time that prolonged length. And
How do you think sort of putting that across, we'll go back to the music for a moment, is doing the audio engineering for people that are out there. Like, how did you think that helped your music? Like, do you think it's a key element? Obviously, not the relationships, because relationships in life, help everything sort of evolve, because that's a
Yep.
separate piece. But that just the pure
Mm.
doing the audio engineering, how do you think that helped tune you to your sound or just music in general?
Look, it just gives it basically just delivers music. How is it made from start to finish? And that's a big story with plenty
Yeah.
of different things in between. Do you know what I mean? All the different avenues. So yeah, it's just you had to really work to keep up. Some of it got really really technical. Funnily
Mm.
enough, there was an electrical part within that course, which I was like, yes, so that helped me. But it just no, it just uh, tuned me up with some skills, how to record across a mic, how to set up mics, how to, just before you and I started, I was using some
Oh,
of that
mate, yeah.
knowledge, gaining up my
I could see that, and I was like,
thing
geez,
going, Paul, does
oh
it sound
wow.
good? So it just gives you a good understanding, yeah, of music as a whole.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Mm.
So then the second piece to that, I suppose, is probably really important for everyone, but not just the piece of that piece of your life, but we'll talk about it, I suppose, as it gets future, is that, you met all these key individuals that helped you mold, that piece of your career as well.
Yeah,
Um, like from that element and, building relationships with stakeholders, because now you're in your other business, because technically that music career was sort of your first business, wasn't it, when you think about it? Because it's a fundamental structure that you
you're
need
right.
to
Yeah.
make, that bit of music, you've got to spend money, you got to do these elements, you got to, navigate
Mm.
logistically flights and, your band and, just everything in general.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely, yeah, correct. And what I'll say about that is, you're speaking into it's difficult. It's difficult work trying to get your someone to listen to your music, someone to put you on TV, someone to take you seriously enough to put you on radio. I mean, that's a really really difficult thing, and it takes a lot of rejection, a lot of ghostings for
Yeah.
or just messages that don't come back. So it was my training for business. You did right. And what I found when I started applying that same work ethic, that same hustle
Mm.
to the trades, to the electrical game, I was getting a lot more yeses back. I was seeing a lot more people were interested in my stuff finally. It's like, wow, okay, yes, you can come and wire my business, my house, rewire, upgrade my switchboard. Yes, yes, yes. I was, so I think that it really sort of conditioned me for the work ethic that's been very helpful in my electrical business.
Yeah, that is very interesting as well, because it's you're talking about that hustle, I suppose. If you break it down from just what I'm listening to and what I've been reading in different forms, because I'm on the electrical forums in New Zealand, Australia, and there's elements, and I think we touched on it before. This is, people are under a lot of pressure in New Zealand and here with our trades and trying to get, more work. But I think fundamentally within the trade courses, you don't get given any real business elements. You don't get any marketing, and like marketing in life, like a brand, it's like you as a brand in general. But you sell that. Like, how do you get two people? How do you then turn that into like revenue, or to make you work and then evolve? Because obviously, I suppose we get more into the electrical now. Is that you started as a one man band. How did you get from here to here, and how did you get clients? And recently you've just opened up a larger facility with more people. Like, it's like a
Yeah,
massive undertaking. It's
yeah, yeah. Team is everything, right? I was by myself only for about 25 years of age, opening up First Point Electrical, coming back from Australia, having to
on a high, mate. Just soaring.
on
Yeah,
a high, and sort of I'm so glad that funny story happened, because if it hadn't, I probably would have spent 5 or 10 more years just ticking along with working for
grind.
someone.
Yeah,
That we all need that push to it was a shove. Get out there, come on, Sam. This is what you can do. This is what
yeah.
you've always wanted. Now is the time. Yes, okay, it wasn't ideal circumstances, but let's do it. Um, and team is everything. I was by myself for probably only about 1 year, so from 25 years to 26 years of age. Then I got a young man called Mr. Patworth, Peter Patworth. Not sure if he
Oh,
crossed
yeah,
you know him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so he was my only employee for probably the next 4 years or so. And then we're talking about like drivers. A little man called Leo Martin came along
Mm.
after that. So that's when I was like, shit, I'm going to take this, you know, give this a crack, you know. So that's when I got a couple of vans. That's when I sort of etched it up to a team of four. Probably I did that for a couple of years, and then
Just sorry for interrupting. One point, like, because I know people, there's people out there thinking about this shit all the time, and not
yeah,
just in this, but in a business. Like, to go
yeah,
from that, you and one person, adding two people is, was there like a point of you were thinking, shit, mate, like, I'm going deep into this now. Like, I'm
yeah.
doubling basically the costs. I'm doubling everything. Like, was there? Were you? How was your thoughts going? Like, were you like, fuck, can I do this? Should I do this? The
Every
pressure.
time.
Yeah.
Every time. I still do it now. I'm going to do it very shortly when I hire an estimator. I did
Yeah.
it on Friday. I had 10 people I was interviewing for the next electrician role. But I was like, I've done this before. I've had probably 40 staff through the company over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But you shit yourself every time, to be completely blunt. That's what keeps people as one man bands, them and their son,
Yeah.
wearing all the hats. It's not till I sort of the business coaching and things like that realizing you need to hire when you're sort of at 80% capacity. There's only so
Yeah.
much that you can do, by yourself, and team is everything,
Yeah.
you know?
That, just on that point too, that it's
Mm.
very interesting. You don't. I think you're at, and it's a lot of businesses, not just like the small, it's the larger. Like, if you're at, and it comes to the overheads and costs and how you sort of suck it up, as you say, like, if you're at 80%,
Mm.
you're that 20%, but yeah, if you're running at 100 to 120%, you're too far behind the ball, aren't you? You can't, to catch that piece and then spend the extra hours, mate. To, like, to employ someone, as you say, like, you're going through
Yeah,
fucking 10 interviews. It's like an hour a piece. It's
yeah,
the whole day, like,
exactly.
gone. Yeah,
Yep.
that's just talking to people. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's there's a lot of hidden elements, that people don't take into consideration. They know life, and having a business is extremely difficult, but there's a lot of, that the paperwork, and like, what would
Yeah.
you spend, compared to having, like, when you started with
Mm.
the 1 to 2 to 4 to now, with how many people actually do you have now? Sorry.
There's 8 of us in the team now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that have you, because you've actually bolstered it and you're looking at the next level, are you still spending the same amount of time, or would you say at the start you're doing millions of hours and now you're still doing millions of
No,
hours?
at the start, I was doing. I don't even know how I lived through it. To be honest, I was doing 18-hour days,
Yeah,
invoicing all night,
yeah,
worn out, ridiculous hours. I do a graceful 45-hour week now. I work
yeah.
from 7 till 4:30, 5 o'clock. Maybe a little bit of chipping away in the evening, sort of thing.
Mm.
But it
And
was extreme difference from when from starting until now.
yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. You hear a lot of that, across the multiple podcasts I read and books, and like that,
Yeah.
that they just talk about that grind at the start. A lot of
Mm.
those people never leave that level of pressure. I think it gets built into you, doesn't it? And it's like,
Yeah.
should your life be that way? Because you're sort of doing it for a reason. Like, it sounds like, how did you get to the point where you made it that, like, I need to do these things and I'm going to make it
Yeah.
functionally work? What were the key elements you put into yourself and the business to make that work?
Well, the two biggest changes have been the moment that I employed an office manager, which was probably 6 or 7 years into this whole thing, and that was the point that I finally felt like I had a business. Because when you're on the tools, running a couple of guys, doing all the paperwork at night, you're just you've created like a job for yourself.
Yeah.
Once you've got that person in the office where and the phone calls are no longer all coming to you. There was a point where I took 120 phone calls per day. That's down to probably about six now, 6 to 10, if that. Um, so yeah, so getting that office manager was huge and a real pivotal change. And then for many years after that, it was just myself, an office manager, 4 or 5 Sparkies.
Mm.
The office manager and I were doing a little bit of everything, but doing nothing exceptionally well. I was doing a bit of invoicing, bit of quoting. She's doing a bit of quoting, bit of invoicing. So that second change that I want to talk about is after some business coaching. Shout out to the Profitable Tradie crew. Is getting everybody in their own lane, right? So what I mean by that is I promoted one of the guys, my lead electrician, into the ops manager role. So now he runs the guys. That's his job. The office manager, instead of doing a bit of quoting, a bit of this, a bit of that, her job is now the money, paying the
Yeah.
bills, and getting paid. Doing our 100, well in excess of $1 million in invoicing a year. That's her pure. That's her job, and we've never had a cash flow issue since we did that. By the way,
Wow, that's
and then we have a virtual assistant as well, who's like the assistant to the three of us managers. So I'm
yep.
still on estimating at the moment, which is almost a full-time job. So at the moment I'm pretty maxed out. So that next stage that I said that I was going to crap myself was when I hire a full-time estimator. So that'll take about 40 of my hours away. That'll step me into the part of my job which I am, I don't want to say neglecting, but if I've got 40 more hours a week to do, it's going to be significant. Will be sales, relationships, feeding it in from the top,
Yep.
feeding it in for the estimator who gets the job, feeds it down to the operations manager who runs it with the team, feeding it down to the office manager who invoices the job, and then the VA follows up and makes sure everyone's happy.
Yeah, so you set yourself up into the growth phase, and I think there's a key element you talked about earlier, and I think fundamentally a lot of people don't think about this. And you have a business. You don't have a business if you can't walk away from it. It doesn't still make you money. Like, you can't turn around and sell it because it's all you. Like, it's
Yeah,
literally you are doing fucking everything.
yeah,
So yeah, like what you've done is actually now put those key elements in place to fundamentally make it function. And
yeah,
if go like, oh, I actually want to go on holiday next week, and you're not going to be sitting there going, I've got no money,
yeah,
like it's actually going to impact you in months to come. It's not an immediate thing either, is it? It's like, yeah, you've got cash flow coming in, but then there's a gap because that two
yeah.
weeks you wouldn't have actually physically worked, and yeah, so it's a
Yeah,
very good takeaway point, isn't it? That businesses, yes, you're in a business, but if you fundamentally can't sell that business or walk away to have a holiday,
mm.
is it actually doing what it needs to do for you?
A very
Um,
wise a very wise man once said to me, the goal of every business owner should be to make yourself redundant within your own business. I mean that, and then so I've sort of taken that on board. Yeah.
that's very good, and then that is an amazing segue. Sam. Both of those 2 points was you've used some coaching, but you've also obviously sounds like you've talked to other people that have given you some other fundamental guiding. Like, how do
Yep.
you how do you find mentors, or how did you come across this platform to help you sort of take that next step within yourself?
Okay. So I've had three business coaches in my time. I started off with a guy called Roger Evans. You can actually see some of his books in the back
Oh,
there. The SMI Success Motivation International, a guy called Paul J. Meyer. He's unfortunately dead now. But he was before Tony Robbins. He was the first in that regard. So I went through a few programs. That was what put the office manager into the office. That sort of
yep.
that stage. Then worked with another sort of one-man band coach after that. All the while, I was always getting these things from the Profitable Tradie all over my news feed. Their algorithms or whatever, or they obviously know that I'm a registered Sparky
Mm.
business owner. You other tradies will know what I'm talking about. It's all over our newsfeed. This guy that's going to put structure in your business processes. So finally, after probably 10 years of hearing from this dude on my newsfeed, I was like, I think there's something to this, and I bit the bullet and did it. So that out of the three, that's the absolute game changer. It's expensive as shit. It's like $3,000 a month, but
Oh,
what they put on your bottom line is double, triple that. They create $1 million businesses. There's guys that have gone from teams of 10 to teams of 80 running this program. There's
80.
five there's 500 businesses a part of this. If you can imagine us all paying $3,000 or $4,000 times 500, it's close to $20 million annual turnover. So it's like,
Mm,
I'm going to listen to these guys because these guys are
yeah.
blowing up their own business. They've done exactly what they preach to their business themselves. So that's just been fantastic. It's an 18-month program at least. A lot of the members end up staying in for longer. It becomes a culture. We have boot camps 3 times a week, 3 times a year. I've been to one already in Auckland City, which is fabulous. Earlier in the year, when I celebrated my 40th birthday in the Gold Coast, and then next week, in 2 weeks' time, I'm heading down to Queenstown with the family to do a boot camp down there. So it's a 2-day intensive, beautifully mapped out. You do your 6-week plans, dig right into your financials, goal setting, and inspiring speakers, that sort of thing. So that it's just been fundamental. So again, that was a scary thing to pay $3,000 a month to tell for business coaching is flipping scary, man. But again, it's one of those things that you've got to have the balls to do it. Once I eventually got the balls to do it, it's been the
Yeah.
fundamental shift that was needed to
That's
to expand and grow and take over the world.
yeah, and that's a very interesting point as well. It's talk about other things I've read about different people and listen to, and it's like, you have to beat the fear, but at the same time, you have to know your own limitations. Like there is like everybody can't do everything. Like you
Mm,
you have a skill set that's here, but
mm.
you have to be able to ask for help. And
Oh yeah,
be it pay some money to someone else, but and some of them aren't going to work for people, and some of them aren't going to work because, as you say, like some of them are absolute bullshit. Like
yeah,
people out there now selling things that shouldn't be selling things because it
yes,
generates the money, like, and it's just absolute rubbish because you're selling to people that are that naive that they don't understand.
mm,
But as you say, like you find something that has basically been hunting you down for
yeah,
years. But they actually have a recipe for success, and it's working. They've done it, and I suppose it
yeah.
sounds like when you go on this course, is it like an incubator, or is it there's other tradies there or business owners that are doing, you sort of bounce things off each other, or is it sort of
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So there's 500 of us in total now. Like it started with just one dude, Tony Fraser Jones, with 10, 20 businesses. Now it's blown up to a staff of 25, 30 people, 500 businesses. The main makeup is there's like an Aladdin's cave worth of resources and
yeah,
information on their website. We get together twice a week for an online webinar. The first one's like teaching us a new skill or
yeah,
going over something, and the second one of those webinars is like a Q&A session. It's on a Thursdays. The boot camps, and then you're assigned a coach as well that checks up on you, and you do a call every
yeah.
sort of couple of weeks, sort of thing.
It's like when you actually think about it, you break that down. That the three that yes, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, what you've actually just talked about is it's actually very cheap, isn't it? With that's a lot of support. You're getting out of
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah. You
and
don't
you
even
can. Yeah,
you don't notice it because they improve your profitability.
yeah.
They're not going to do the work for you though.
No,
Like you've got to
no,
you've got to. There's a lot of probably a few dudes on there that are kind
magic
of
wand.
yeah.
It's all
You see
happening.
the ones that are there every single webinar. You've really
Yeah,
got to get off your ass and do it. And I think the money is the money is definitely a motivating factor. I don't want to be wasting $3,000 a month on nothing. So I try
mm,
my best to apply it as much as I possibly can. And yeah,
yeah. But from what I can see and have seen, and I suppose our conversation now is that you are obviously dedicated to getting to where you want to go. And that's everything you've actually done to the stage. So a key element is, from my point of view, do you have with this, you're talking about 6-week blocks, but do you have
mm.
like a roadmap of your own goals? Do you put some loose goals together, go, okay, like I got a 5-year plan, I want to do these things? Or is
Yeah.
that yeah,
Yep. Yeah, it's all about goal setting. That's probably the fundamental thing across all of the business coaching, not just the profitable trading, but all of them is to do with goal
yeah,
setting, which is huge. I've got a goal at the moment. The first one was to get this new premises, which we've done. We've finally moved out of the little fish and chip sized place that we've been in for 11 years to this massive place. And again, I shat myself with that. That was
yeah,
such a huge thing that took me 2 months to decide to do that. and we've done it, and it's the best thing. My team's happy. Just magically, more business is coming. More people are interested in
Yeah.
our business. You're making promo videos for it. Business is coming. It's creating that vacuum. It's been awesome. So my business is now very simple. I know that each tradesman that I have out on the tools will bring in $25,000 of revenue every single month. As I said, I had the interviews on Friday for my next guy. So that's number 5 in a van. We'll have number 6 in a van before Christmas. That'll bring us to our turnover goals that I've set. And therefore that trickles down to the profit goals as well. So it's as clear as crystal. I just got to find those 2 guys,
Yeah.
25 grand each. Boom.
How easy is it to find those guys that fit, you, the business, the journey? Because, you've said you've had about 40. Obviously, like I suppose throwing it out there that people don't know about trades, but
Yeah.
know they exist. Like it is like what we've actually been talking about now. Like people get to a point they're like, well, I could do this myself, but some people don't. But you want the people that want to do it themselves because they have that hunger and the drive and they want to learn and they want to do shit good. Like, how do you go through that sort of mix of finding people?
It's very, very difficult. It is very, very difficult. It's been exceptionally difficult in the last 10 years. It's been an employee's game. There's guys that have been, $10,000 sign-on bonus. Come to my, Joe Blogs, these electrical services. We'll give you 10 grand if you sign on. Those days are gone now because things are getting hard. So it's kind of finally come back in the employer's side of things, where I've noticed in this last campaign to find a new guy, there's more registered guys out there. A lot of guys have been made redundant. They're available. So it's sort of it's turned a little bit, which is it's great for the employer. And just sort of balance things up from the crazy times we've had over the last kind of 10 years since construction's just been nuts.
Yeah, and it's gonna come back. Like I have these. I wrote this thing. I haven't put it out yet. I normally put some things out on LinkedIn. I've been a bit slack. I'm back. The podcast, LinkedIn, and branding, I suppose, is the best way to put it. But I like sharing. But that's the whole point of this in general, is to get the information out there. But I've coming from a trade and being like, fuck, I was on like $5 an hour or something when I started.
Yeah, I was I wasn't far, $6. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously we're very close. Like we're 2 years older than you, so like it's like, but that dollar was huge then, like massive. But I worked at a petrol station part time on a weekend to get money because the petrol station was paying me like 10.50 an hour, so
Burger King
supplementing
for
my
me.
income. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you actually, and I don't think people understand that now. Like when you were earning, like it was still good money, but it wasn't enough to really survive. Like you couldn't actually do anything. You could be a sparky and get money,
Yeah.
but you still have to pay rent and food and a bit of drink
Yeah.
and like it was all gone. Like that. If you wanted to actually make something, you had to do a little bit more. So, I don't know if those days are still there now. I think people will just go and like I was still doing Saturdays, like we actually got, and it seems to have gone now to some degree, but we were getting like that time and a half as well. Like you
Time and a
do
half.
8 hours, and I don't know if that, and we had a tool allowance and all those things. It was good times back then. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing that, people are actually succeeding now in the trades, like those hard services. Like people have always put tradies down, like, but they are the people that keep the countries running. Like if you didn't have the hard services, you'd be screwed. Like you can't take people's skills of that nature away. There's no way in hell. You can't replace it with AI. You can't, you physically have to have people that do these things. And I think we're not, because the apprentices are still low. They've royally shafted that for years and years and years, and people aren't directed down that path. It's like at a degree, like I say that to my kids, it's like you go get that education and blah blah blah. And then I'm just thinking, well, it's actually not a bad career path. Like it's good, it's fun. Like you meet a lot of good people, and you have opportunities like yourself, and you do extremely well. There is struggle, with anything, but so it opens a different path in life, like but coming from, and I think this is the problem with, I suppose, what we have done. We've come from like rural New Zealand. We've done a graft into different areas. You go to a city, and the city changes your view. Like it's like, well, we don't want our kids to have what we want, so we want them to have what's up here. But up here is not doing all this other stuff. It's actually what's beneficial for them in the long run. Like, what do they
Mm,
actually like? What do they want to do? Like,
yeah,
yeah, having kids just change that thought process drastically. Yeah, it's a weird and
yeah,
wonderful
definitely.
world.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
how do you balance all of these elements? And you've been doing it for a very long time. What is
Yep.
your thing that makes you sort of get in the zone when you're feeling a bit over?
Yeah, mate, you just got to do those basics. Hey, the exercise. I'm a frequent gym person as much as I can with a young family, etc. Eating right, and just taking a break when it's needed. I can easily get myself wound into crazy feelings of stress and overwhelm when you've got seven other people that you're
Mm,
suddenly you realize you're responsible for their well-being, their mortgages, their families, to a certain degree. That's quite freaky and quite scary. So I really have to be, and it's still a work in progress. Certainly not perfect, but I think as you get older, the beauty of age is you do get better at this stuff. Wow, those things that they always told us all along, eating well and exercising, it really does help. So that would be a big part of it, and just the way that the business is structured really helps me with, and that's only happened in the last kind of within the last 12 months, that real stay in your own lane. You do this, I do this. We have clear job descriptions with KPIs indicating those job descriptions. We know exactly who's doing what, with still some fine tuning, but generally, this is your job, that's your job. Yeah, so getting the balance right
mm.
is huge.
So if we're breaking that down, because obviously when you first sort of step out onto the tool, say some of the questions I like, if like if you're the 25-year-old you and you're walking into this business, what would be some fundamental advice you'd give that younger Sam at that time?
Yeah. I'd probably be looking for a bit of advice from 25-year-old Sam for 40-year-old Sam. I'm proud of that guy. He was a guy that went after his dreams, didn't let anything stop him. He was a white guy that was diving into the hip hop game, and didn't let it stop him. So I'm proud of that guy. Uh, I think those fundamentals, I would say, hey, like what I just mentioned to you before, would be the one. The exercise, for what it does for my mental health now. I feel that could have been really beneficial to have that additional strength back as a 23, 25-year-old young man. I want to say maybe I would advise him to maybe not party and bender so hard, but I mean, I think it was probably something I needed to really get out of the system. It was kind of ingrained in us. We had a fabulous set of friends, when you got a lot of friends when you're young, two, 300 of you, all from different walks of life. And
Yeah.
it was a fantastic time, but maybe a little less of that would have improve the mental health as well, and just to do what I did, which was go for your dreams, follow your dreams, follow your passion, do something every day that gets you closer to it.
I think that's very good advice. It's interesting. I've got another episode I've recorded a couple of weeks back, and slightly a different twist on it is this guy Paul. He was like I'd give my younger self to take more risks than what I
Yeah,
did, and it is weird because it depends what your youth looks like compared to your as you get older. But yeah, I'm on the same, like as you talk about that. I have a lot of resonating thoughts because I was young and took a lot of risks that potentially shouldn't have. But yeah, it molds you to be the person you are now. But the thing is, yeah, it's your environment. I think it comes back to that whole, sort of isolating, but putting that sort of the cushioning around your children. We had experiences that were for reasons, that unfolded, because we had multiple different parties of friends. You could do different things and
Mm.
meet different people and be like, oh, do I want my children, having that sort of journeys? But
Yeah.
you don't get to now without having that. Yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, I do think that, your point on taking the risks, like you need to take more of what you were and then add it to now, but in a structured context, like taking the lessons learned and evolving it into how do you make that,
Yeah.
functionally work. Yeah.
And when the consequences are less, like when you're
Yeah.
25, you're only most likely renting a proper room in a property, try that business. What's the worst that's
Yeah.
going to happen? You might be a little bit late with your rent. You're not going to get your house taken off you by the bank at that stage. So the consequences are less. You don't probably don't have a family or children that depend on you. This is the time
Yeah.
uh to go for it.
And
Take
that
those
that's
risks.
that comes out a lot. Like, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. There's one key thing
Same.
it's turned into a massive snippet that floats around, is that, like, if he wasn't at the stage he was when he made his decisions for his, that's now made his career, because
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way I could do it now, because you have so much responsibility, family,
Yeah.
bills, life, and it's
Mm.
very interesting. Like, people do actually fundamentally do it now. It just seems to be more structured. um, and Shane, the guy at the first podcast, but he's a real estate agent, and he was saying that was the thing. He was sort of floating around. He got into it sort of 21, but he was still living at home. He said, that gave him that year where literally you make no money,
Mm.
because it's, they give you like a retainery thing. But he said, that set me up to do the next step. He goes, without having that, makes
Yeah.
life so much easier, because you've had, even when you are that age, you got to pay rent and all that sort of stuff. Well, I don't think the kids now, they don't live till they're like 25. So, but like,
Really.
it makes like I've heard,
Mm.
it's it gives you that buffer to be able to do things and challenge things that are different. And literally, people out there need to understand that shit is never gonna always fall on the positive side. Like, you are never gonna always win. There's gonna be
Mm.
failures and repeated failures, and it's gonna happen for your whole life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that resilience it builds, but I don't think you can ever be fully to the level where failure isn't going to impact you. It's about how you come back from that, mate,
Mm.
and how you use that to motivate yourself to, get to the next level and make
Yeah.
it
I
fundamentally
think
work for you.
I think a problem that happens with us, and I'm a victim of this as well, my own victim, is that we wait until the conditions are perfect,
Yeah.
until the stars are aligned, or I have this much money, or I have this much confidence, or to do that next fundamental move. But the conditions are never really going to be perfect. It's never going to be the perfect time to pop out that next kid. It's never going to be perfect. So I think if you look at that, the imperfection as the perfection, to say, hey, maybe the conditions are always perfect, and you know, you go for it, because otherwise you just remain stuck. You remain as that you remain in that job that you hate. You remain as a one man band because it's too,
Yeah.
oh, I've got a mortgage now and a kid. I can't jump to that next level and get that staff member. It's what keeps a lot of people stuck, and you can bust through that. What's on the other side of that? A little bit of risk is something to be very proud of. More often
No.
than not. More often than not.
Yeah.
Huh?
Exactly right. And there's a lot of things about the the fear of not have doing something in your life,
Mm.
or regret, is worse than the failure. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would much rather have failed at 10 things than not tried, at my music, or given it a crack.
Mm.
Yes, I didn't end up selling out the worldwide stadium tour that I visualized for myself, but there was elements that were pretty damn cool. You know what I mean? I got to play with a lot of my heroes. When,
Yeah.
when I switched over to a lot of the drum and bass music, that was probably something I need to update the listener on. Is I started with the hip hop stuff and went into the drum and bass. Then the crowds went from rapping in front of 30 people to 1,500 of these crazy ravers at the big festivals and concerts and whatnot. So
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've got so many more things to talk about in your like,
yeah,
and you know, it's great to have you come on. But I'm sure we've got a whole another episode, mate, in the future.
yeah.
And, you know, obviously coming back to talk about, you know, how your next steps. You know, the bigger, the
Mm,
better. You know, where do you go is always, you know, very interesting to, you know, get those updates because it helps, you know, people, even myself, like just talking about this shit is exciting, you know, because you are doing exceptionally well, you know, and a lot of people don't, but they don't try either, you know.
that's it. All it takes is I'm no genius. I just you know, and I don't get it right all the time. I just if I need to take those small steps to get me closer to where I need to be. And I know you're no stranger to success as well, my friend. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
No, good, good. Thanks very much. But yeah, I think coming back to that fear, and I've talked about it. I don't know if I've talked about it on this, but yeah, the doing the first time doing this because I've had the journey in Australia, shall we say, it's been fucking ups and downs and all arounds in life. This has been, you know, a couple of years of unusual pressure, which will come out more, I suppose, in the future. But
Mm,
the starting this, mate, this was on the cards for years, mate. I talked about to myself. I thought about it. I was talking to the wife. I was like, mate, I want to do this. I like talking to people, but to actually do it was so difficult. And then I
yeah,
did it, and it was great. And then just shit didn't go right. The direction was just not happening. And I was like, I really want to do this. I can't do it now. It's not going to work. And
yeah,
then to reinvigorate it was 10 times harder. I was like, fuck. Like, I was on the move. I was moving
yeah,
forward. It was happening and people were engaged. And then, you know, as I said before we started, that a lot of people in New Zealand, because it's all about, you know, New Zealand people doing well. And the, sorry, not doing well. It's talking about their story and helping others. But, you know, like, how do they do that? You know, and being well is more of that psychological element as well. You know, like, where are you? But people are in a pressure cave at the moment. They got, you know, there's pressure all around and rates and work and, you know, and
mm,
people are like, oh, I am, but I need to get to a point, you know, where I'm doing that. And it's like, fucking hell. Like it's actually sort of it's quite real, you know, when you're talking to people about their, you know, points that are struggles at the time as well. And it just sort of puts you back, oh shit, is this something I should be doing? Like, or should I not be doing? Like, what's going on? So yeah, it was harder to reinvigorate it in them. You know,
mm,
everybody that comes on the talk, you know, it's for me is, you know, time is so important to, you know, like you take an hour out of your Sunday, and even the time to get to this is, you know, messages and all the stuff that goes
mm,
with it. You know, like you could be spending it with your family rather than talking to me and
yeah,
everybody else that will listen to it. But no, it's greatly appreciated that, you know, you can actually spend the time, and you know, this will be embedded in the future, you know, for
yeah,
others to pick up at whatever time they feel like or find it. You know, like the first one I've done, my real estate agent friend, he sent me a message and said, "Oh, a guy approached me about doing something else because he
mm,
found this on YouTube," and I was like, "And that's exactly right. Like it's just those pieces in time, shall we say?" So
yeah,
yeah, and as I say, you know, it's always good to revisit these things in the future. So the normal the last question I'd like
yep.
to ask is that what advice would you give to the listeners about either be it business or personal or a bit of a mix of both, you know, to help them, you know, what's that sort of one element? It could be something you've really touched on, or maybe something else.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of them actually. I think fundamentally, you just need to be a good person, right? You need to be
Yeah.
a kind person. You need to be respectful. If you know, hold that door. If you're a man for your woman, pick that thing up off the ground if it drops from the lady carrying the baby. You know what I mean? Just be a good, respectful, kind person. Be a person of your word. You know, as I get older, the importance of, hey, I'm going to do that email by this time. Make sure you do that email
Mm.
by that time, or just don't say that promise. You know, your word is your bond. Your word is a promise that you're putting out there. So if you say you're gonna do something, do it, and you're only looked at like a champion. You say something and you don't do it, that's the point where you kind of fall off and don't do yourself any favors. So yeah, be a person of your word, cherish life. You know, 40 years of age, Paul, where shit, we're probably halfway through it, man. That's a hard pill to swallow, eh? So just cherish it, man. It doesn't last forever. Um, you know, spend as much time as you can with your kids, even if they drive you crazy. But there's a day's going to come where those little finger marks and things are finally gone. That those things that drive you insane, and those are going to be the things you miss most in life. So just cherish your time with your loved ones. Follow your dreams. Find a way. Think big.
Thank you very much. It's great. Those elements about being older. You gotta take that, and I think about it all the time. Right, when you're 20, when you're teens, you don't want to be 20, or you do, but you don't. And then you hit 30, and you're like, fuck. And you hit 40, and you're like, the problem is it's never stopping. Like there is a day it will stop, but you just gotta absorb it and run with it. I do find though, especially with kids, you get like a more emotional. It's more
soften.
Yeah,
I find that our ladies are much more graceful at accepting getting older. They just roll into their 40s, 50s. Like us guys, we seem to try and hang on to that youth, that rotary. That it doesn't feel like that long ago to us. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to stop doing the silly stuff.
No, I totally agree, and I don't know what that is. It's testosterone. I don't know, something inbuilt into you that and it is like you got to take those elements and use them wisely. But you can't live in the past. Maybe is the correct way to do it. You've got to shed some of those things to evolve and move forward. And that is also very good advice, isn't it? Yeah, that did happen. It was fun. Now it's time to do whatever else, but things that are different are more fun, like going to rugby with little mate, and watching them is just blowing the doors off people, like runaway tries, and like that's great. It's great. So, well, thank you very much for your time, mate. We've dropped about an hour-ish, which is great for me and you. I hope you enjoyed it.
I absolutely enjoyed it, mate. It's good. We were mostly talking about everybody's favorite subject, which is their own story. And I really just really appreciate your time and getting me on here, Paul. It's been awesome.
No, thank you. It's all about having you. If it was me talking, I've done one with me talking. Right.
Did a solo podcast? Is that even a thing?
Well, it was more about just the story, the very small snippet of the story and the plan. Because I was just in that. And the mindset, when you're in the mindset, you're like, fuck, I really feel like I need to do this. So and I have thought about it because I've got so many tools, shall I say, that I've developed for myself or read or podcasts, about. But I don't know if it goes with this. You got to keep on a path and continue it. And it's about people helping people. So I might need to adjust my platform elements. I think as I message you, I'm trying to find a decent media center to try and snip things up and make it a bit more presentable and pump it out, because I've been doing all sorts of stuff and dabbling for a long time in different elements of media, social media. So it's the next step, so we can start pushing this out to more people. And
awesome.
But anyway,
I just really hope that one day that there's one day soon that someone switches the role and you are the one answering the questions, because I know that you've had really commendable success and a journey so far that would be fantastic to listen to as well. So hopefully one day you can do that as well.
Well, thank you very much. But I think we should just push that everybody listens to all of these, and they might get pieces of it. Well, one day, and that's the thing. It's all about giving everybody advice. Really, at the end of the day, if that one person out there that takes that one piece of information and it helps them, it's what it's all about. And that's all we can do, isn't it? Try and support. But thank you very much for your time. It's been amazing, mate. It's always good to catch up, but obviously to share your story like that's very, very inspiring.
Thank you so much, sir. I wish you all the best with this this channel and this podcast. We'll see you soon, bro.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Bye.